Another one that came from an actual moment. I got asked to submit a poem to a collection that was called Prayers of a Secular World. And I thought, I'm not really into religion, but funnily enough, you sort of put your antenna out and something amazing happens, and this is what happened to me. I was raised a Catholic, so the fact that this poem's called Limbo, I understand the significance spiritually of what I'm, Limbo. Why shouldn't a miracle be at the primary school disco? Lurching up the dancing queue of the limbo line, where the father of Jaden, the boy with cerebral palsy, has his arms hooked under his son's, so the boy's almost walking, almost dancing. When every boy and every girl all around the limbo world is getting ready to shimmy under that broomstick. The DJ is a 17-year-old kid in a rainbow vest his mum made him, and he's holding the stick. I'm watching for nothing other than the hope that he doesn't raise it when Jaden's turn arrives, that he keeps it steady as the music says, "Hey, how low can you go?" And one by one the kids tilt their supple spines backwards, hair dangling, the jerk and eye roll, the shudder of splayed muscle, as chubby Checker croons Limbo, till it's Jaden's turn. His dad drops to one heavy knee, slips a hand behind his son's head and shimmies him under and through, contorted, crooked, and then back up somehow, while the DJ holds that stick immovable, no sleight of hand, and the man does not duck his own head or scramble under, so can only think, focused on tipping his boy carefully into the world beyond, unscathed, that this father, flexed hard in awkward genuflection, passed through that solid wooden hurdle, that it dissolved for a single second as his barrel chest breasted it, because still cupping the frail tendons of his son's neck, he was suddenly on the other side. Oh, you can cut it down. You go ahead.
You've got to cut that.
You've got to cut that one. Limbo. Yeah. Got a couple here though. This is one called Temporality. Have you ever lived in a place that's got a lot of history and everything about it is just left and sitting there, and every day you're kind of walking around and you can put your hand out and touch that doorknob that's been kind of burnished by so many hands, that kind of feeling? Were you in that kind of place? It always seems it does actually feel a bit sacred to me, that kind of place. This is called Temporality. I'll ask you to assemble here, next to the step where so many feet have stood shifting, waiting for a welcome, that they have worn a cupped impression in the brick. There are no headphones or podcast, no virtual tour, nothing is animatronic. There are not even signs. In this museum, objects must be noticed in order to be named. Let me invite you to put your sceptical fingers here into a wall cracked open like a seam. In that arid subsiding spot with its bite of jagged mortar exposed, feel the evidence deliberate as a glacier of movement, of the power of slow ruin. And in the shed, on this salvaged beam taken from an old factory, you can read the faded names of workers from half a century ago, still scrawled provisionally in pencil: Joe, Wally, Gavin, Terry. This 4-inch nail banged in beside them to hold invoices that they always meant to replace with a decent hook or clip. See how it's still holding fast long after they have gone. See how they were wrong about what was temporary. These are the exhibits worth naming. The triumph of the nondescript, the steady rise and rise of the inevitable. Seeing them here, barely visible, demanding nothing, might remind you of your own belongings, the last things you expected to have bundled under your arm. The shirts washed colourless, and the unfinished books that you know would have done you good. One hand clutching a dented pie dish, scored like an endless unsolved equation. The hat with its forgotten tide marks of sweat. everything it's too late to grieve for, that you thought you had discarded, everything you used unthinkingly until it was burnished into invisibility. These remnants, adrift from their stories, will end up here too. Whatever lies we tell ourselves about, these are the things that will outlive us. That brick will see us out. That forgotten nail, driven in with 4 heedless, glinting hammer blows back in 1957, will remain immovable in that piece of hardwood when you and I are dust. And the ghosts have stopped in this doorway and rested one hand tightly against the wall to take off their boots before coming inside, just here, their fingers grazing this worn, unsanctified spot. Their voices are as distant and as impossible as sirens. Well, this is where I leave you. To make your way through the rooms, threading back and back into the hushed corners, your lips moving with recognition until there are no rooms, until you are standing empty-handed in the sunlight.
The blind people clap like this.
That's right. Deaf people clap like this.
Oh, yeah, the deaf people, I mean.
They can clap. Blind people might clap, I don't know, however they want. However they want. A couple about mothers. Mothers. Okay. This is for everybody who's which one will I read? Okay, I'll read the one about when you're trying to do some writing and you have a child who's able to pull themselves up and walk around that age, when everything's. I remember I was at the sink one time and my daughter was standing at the windowsill, and I was doing that thing where you're scrubbing all the plastic things out with the bottle brush and the Miltons, the disinfectant I'm talking about. And she's looking up at me and she smiled and she just picked up a blowfly and just put it in her mouth and ate it. Never had a moment that wasn't alive, my daughter. This is when she's little. It's called The Zen Master. If you're a mother, this one's for you. I have written this with a body stretched and sore, stitches swollen, torn by a crowning head, tongue thick with painkillers, and in the next room a cry for milk to set my heart off like a caged bird against my ribs. And I've written this dragging with me a lead apron of grainy exhaustion, page prickling through a stinging mist, mouth metallic with adrenaline, while she sleeps frowning, tender as a camellia. I've written all I could in a gluttonous, scrawling haste, hearing her call for me, crawling through the other room, written it washed with guilt, the soup burned to the saucepan, snatching just 5 illicit minutes to myself, for God's sakes, just 5. And I've written as she sat under my feet, pulling what's hoarded from the shelf below, cringing at the sound of tearing paper, until the computer connection suddenly went dead, and she, gummy, triumphant, seated like a Buddha, held the cable aloft and waved it like a prayer flag. And I have written like today as she stood by my leg crying with frustration, beating a tattoo upon my thigh with both hands, her face transposing everything, urgently seeking my eyes, demanding I turn away from this pointless thing because out there the whole humming world is waiting. See, says her fervent outstretched finger, see, there is the outside. Trust me, everything you need is there. Tell me you wouldn't rise, given that call, and follow her, helpless and ardent as a chastened disciple. Yeah. How are we going for time? 10:02. That's good. I thought I might read a brand new one for you, because that little girl is now 12, and my mother, who did the knitting, has left us. And maybe you're in this position too as a mother. You're a daughter as well as a mother, and there's that push and pull where you think, I'm not going to do that the way that happened to me, and yet out it comes out of your mouth. One time when my daughter was about 3, we had to have very good manners when I was growing up. And my daughter said, I want the rest of my Easter egg. And I said, oh, do you now? And what's the magic word? And she said, abracadabra. So I don't know, you taught me. So this one at the moment is called Retro. You, Jacqueline and Onassis, sunglasses and 2-piece suits, pristine guest toiletries arranged like paintings, cushions aligned, plump and unused, ordered so that any slip, any deviation seemed inconceivable. When the sarcoma took hold, you went down raging, pulling the scenery with you, and even in the hospice, your hand on the remote. That arched eyebrow as I tried to ease your wedding ring from your swollen finger, that bedside bag of cosmetics, that morphine drip, and our disjointed, lulled conversations over what the oncologist called your regime, all that. At home, pots of dead petunias on the patio, I did your paperwork. Your notes to yourself about how to send emails, still on your desk, held in place by a jar of uselessly sharpened pencils. As if you were there, I swept dead flies from the windowsill, vacuumed dutifully and bought new plants. After the funeral, every drawer, every sachet, every lipstick showed me your steel will and the terror beneath and the blasted terrain of your discontent. Small shell soaps rained down on me like artillery as I pulled your folded immaculate sheets from cupboards. The day of the estate sale, I took a scarf, paisley and perfumed, and wrapped it around the tiny china urn, stayed on the back seat of my car. It stayed folded in the back of my own drawer as I wait to turn into something approximating you. My late in life daughter you lectured me about is on the cusp of puberty now. Listen, remember how you greeted the whispered news of my first period with that grim, exasperated weariness, your mouth twisted with affront? Each day watching my girl, I wait, silently nursing old indignities to stop that pattern in its tracks. And I catch sight of your adamantine watchfulness emerging from the bones of my own face. I eye myself with flat, steely resignation, and this, even this, is yours. Tonight, in faded denim and hippie hair, getting ready for the school Beatles concert, humming Here Comes the Sun, she looks for a 1960s headscarf in my drawer. She tugs the paisley silk out like a magician. I want to show her how to tie it, my hands eager just to touch her head, to have her understand that I know all the words. She waits, enduring my fumbling, and then with a gesture so familiar it takes my breath away, reaches back and reties it with a firmer, better knot. Covert, speechless, I watch her in the mirror. There's not a line on her perfect, solemn face, and not a thing on earth I can do to keep it that way. You're right, my humming, heedless girl. Here it comes. Pull on any of those golden threads and unhem this old world. Unravel it.